So good. We're up to a new topic now on 186, and this is Be'inyan Hanisim, regarding the nature of miracles. Okay. V'hine, kol hanivroim kulam lo niyu ela mipnei shekach gazar ratzon yisbarach. All things that exist only do so because God decreed it. V'chen kol hachukim v'hagvulim shelahem lo yuchaku behem elu mipnei shekach gazar hachmaso yisbarach hiyos nois behem. And so too, all of the laws and the limitations that govern all things that were created were only decreed because it was God's will that they be this way, according to what is appropriate and what is wise in God's eyes. Just as God decreed the laws of nature which govern all things, it was all according to His will, so He can certainly nullify them or suspend them, and to change them according to His will, at any time that He likes. So God created the natural world. There are natural laws that govern the natural world, and that was all fit according to God's wisdom, according to the way things should run. However, of course, God certainly reserved for Himself the option of nullifying, negating, or suspending those laws at any time for any particular reason. The novelties, the ways in which God interacts in the world, which are different than, which differ from the laws of nature, huwa nikra nes. That is what we refer to as a nes. Okay, nes. Now, one of the words for nes is banner. And just as a banner is held high, and it gives you an indication of who's holding that banner, who's behind that banner, what that banner represents, so too, a miracle, which in Hebrew is nes, is like that. It's like a promulgation.
Because it's meant to grab attention.
Yes, it's like, it's not necessarily meant to grab attention, but it certainly does grab attention. Yes, it's something that stands out, stands up and above, up and beyond the normal running of the world. Like a banner would stand up and above what it represents, so too an S. Now, the truth is that God's presence is in all of nature, and certainly the natural laws themselves, because they're divinely ordained, they also have within them the divine. Only we call that ordinary rather than divine because it is the normal way that Hashem runs the world. But certainly the whole natural world itself is miraculous. And the Gemara discusses, for example, about how a certain rabbi who was very poor did not have enough oil to burn for his Shabbos candles, and he asked his wife for his daughter to bring for him vinegar instead. And he asked, and his daughter said, "We can't light with vinegar, we need oil." So he said, "He who commanded the oil to light will command the vinegar to ignite as well." And that, in fact, it did.
Why can we not do this today?
In order, what we're basically asking for is a miracle, which is a nes, which means a extension above and beyond the normal running of the world. So that generally speaking, God is not going to just change the normal running of things unless there's some special reason.
He did for this person.
Yeah, for this person. So you have to say that either there is an exceptional person or an exceptional reason, or sometimes both. In this case, it was an exceptional person, and it was in the honor of Shabbos, which on his level must have been something that was held in very great regard. And God performed a miracle for this person. It was a sage of the Talmud. A sage of the Talmud. Yeah.
I feel like if we reach that level where we truly, 100% believe that God is in control of nature and that vinegar could be, it could act as oil. If we truly, like, if we have a slight doubt, maybe it's like, if great tzaddik, maybe it's like a 0.0001 doubt, but because that 0.001 that's why God doesn't.
So then no, right.
If you have 100% no doubt and you know that God wants everything,
Yeah.
then you know, like if you truly know, then
Yeah.
you could do anything.
Yeah, so I guess that's what the sage was convening. It was communicating.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just
But
about-
such a
I think
Sadiq
FFBs
that would
from
merit
Nashville
having
who have that
vinegar
zero
light
doubt.
for Shabbos candles.
What?
Be such a
People in
Sadiq that he
Nashville
wouldn't
born for
go around like waving the
zero
miracle
doubt.
around.
But
He
even if the most
respected
religious
he
person
used
in
it
this
for.
generation-
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how the word got out.
Do you think they do?
Right.
I don't know.
Lighting the daughter,
No.
perhaps.
By the way, we were speaking about Gemaras which seem to indicate the dead are still alive. We were talking about how the body. So I remember it just now. It reminded me of another scenario. I think it was Rabbi. The Gemara says that after Rabbi was nifter, he passed away. He continued to come to his house every Shabbos and make kiddush for his wife. The Gemara says it. Strange thing.
He was not dead.
Yeah. So the Gemara says that one time the neighbor got wind of the fact that that Rebbe's wife was being visited by Rebbe after he passed away and was making kiddush for her, and at that point the word got out and he no longer came because the word got out. The Gemara discusses there how is it that he was able to be Motzer Dechovah because he's not really alive. And the Mesim are Hofshim and the mitzvahs. There's no obligation among the dead to perform the mitzvahs. So how was? So they
It's weird.
yeah, it's a very strange situation. Yeah. I don't know whether it's the Gemara, the commentaries address suggest different answers.
Sure, he had a good
Is it
reason.
possible
How-
that he guided his wife through it so she could take over?
The implication is that he was made. You heard the Gemara, Mordechai? Yeah. It's very strange. With his body, it came and materialized in some way, which looked like a body at least.
It's
We're-
really,
I think it was all
It's very
spiritual.
far out, Tom. It's very far out.
yeah.
Yeah, very far.
was that we did.
What was that? Shlomo, what were
I
you
think it
doing?
was fully spiritual. It wasn't. I don't think it's possible that it was all physical.
Perhaps he had different requirements.
Eliyahu Navi comes and materializes in what
Yeah,
seems
so
to
yes,
be
it's possible that he
material
did
form.
physically. I think physically.
Have you ever-
What were you going to say?
Perhaps he had a different obligation to make sure that his wife had kiddush made, rather than himself having an obligation to make kiddush.
Yeah, the halacha regarding kiddush is that even if one has already fulfilled the mitzvah, he can still make the kiddush again for somebody who hasn't fulfilled the mitzvah. But there has to be at least some basic chiyuv that the person has, some basic relationship and an obligation he has to the mitzvah to be able to perform with somebody else, and that he didn't have. That's one of the answers that's suggested. It's very unique, very strange one. Yeah,
Have you heard that it's very harrowing for the dead to communicate with like living people?
very harrowing for the dead.
Yeah, like it
It's
causes them a
difficult
lot
for
of
them.
pain. So I was listening to a woman, like a lady who's the daughter of a Kabbalist. And she said her father kept coming to see her because she kept she was really wanting it so bad. And he came to see her and he explained that it's very painful for
Very
them.
causing-
to
It's
come.
very hard to leave the spiritual world. I mean, the
Yeah,
well,
it's
heaven
like
and come
physical,
and
like,
come. He has to go through a whole
causes them-
journey. I heard.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how it's it's very difficult for the neshama to depart from
painful.
that realm to come into this realm.
Doesn't want to.
But in terms of like feeling pain or
That's why
I'm not.
if you communicate with
I'm
dead
not sure.
spirits, like you cause them a lot of pain as well.
You're certainly causing them to go out of their way. It's a big inconvenience to have them go from that realm to this.
Usually in the movies they come, what do you want?
Yeah,
Again?
yeah. But a person's not actually allowed to do anything that would be involved in communicating with the dead in terms of like magical or practices and necromancy. But sometimes the departed do appear to a person in a dream, in a dream and communicate messages.
But you've not heard that it causes them pain or anything.
Only this idea that it puts them out of their way to have to leave the spiritual realm and communicate, but that they actually feel something akin to pain.
I don't know, maybe an
Yeah, maybe it's a type of an anguish, being dislocated from that realm and coming to this realm. Maybe is described as being like a pain. I never quite thought about it in those terms.
It's like a deprivation sort of.
Yeah, it's like a
Videos on
deprivation.
YouTube.
Discomfort or something.
There was someone in our family, meaning my wife's family. Her father appeared to her in a dream, and he complained that it was dark and there was darkness, and she felt that her father's soul was experiencing like a great anguish and was something having to do with darkness.
Who's this?
A relative on my wife's side of the family. So a few days went by, and then the soul came again, and again was complaining to her about being in darkness. Shut off the light. This is out of in darkness or whatever. I don't exactly remember the language that was communicated, but that was the theme. And then it came back like a third time in a month, and she was pretty disturbed about the whole thing. So she went to the I think she communicated the dream to her brother, who lived in another town, in their hometown in Israel, where the family was usually from. So the brother was like amazed; he couldn't believe it. Why? Because the shul where they had donated the eternal light in their father's memory was being renovated. And he went to the shul and he saw that the light had been turned off. The electricity was shut off. They were renovating the room. So this eternal light that was donated in their father's memory went out, and he came to his daughter in the dream, saying that he was in darkness, even though she knew nothing about the synagogue being renovated or anything like that. She lived in a different town. So they quickly turned back the light on or whatever. They made sure that whatever they do in terms of renovating the shul, that they should keep the ner tamid, which was donated in his Maso, they should be lit. So after they did that, the neshama came back and was basked in light and was happy and pleasant. Yeah. Now the fact that she had that dream is not necessarily indicative, because she knew that the light had been turned on, so she could have imagined it. But the first part of the dream was clearly something that she couldn't have really anticipated.
Why would a light in the shul affect his soul if it's something donated in the memory?
Oh, because the point is that there's such a thing called the ner tamid, which is the eternal light that was lit in the temple. And then once the temple was destroyed, it's customary to have an eternal light in the synagogue as well, which is like a miniature Beis Hamikdash, like a miniature temple. So the point here is that light being lit in honor of the synagogue was done in the memory of this person, which means that soul gets benefit from that mitzvah. That's the point. So it's not like the soul needs the light in the shul, or it was in darkness because the shul was dark. But the point is, the soul was darkened because this mitzvah was extinguished, as it were.
But if 100 years from now the shul's no longer there, what happened to the soul?
I'm not sure. It's like a yahrzeit candle, but it's like it's the eternal light. It's constantly lit.
Did it
in the
happen
merit.
The first 40 days, maybe? Perhaps?
Was that?
Did it happen in the first 40 days after?
No, I don't think so. No, it was years after the person was nifter. Yeah. But the soul was deriving some benefit from the fact that this ner tamid was donated in its merit, and when it went out, it extinguished that mitzvah for the soul for the time being, and it came to complain, as it were. Yeah. So I had a dream once. My grandmother of blessed memory, she came to me in a dream, and she was sitting in a large field, and the field was just beautifully green. Everything was all green, and she was sitting in the middle of the field in this chair, and she looked at me and she smiled. That was it. A few days later, I inherited a lot of green. I inherited some money. But, I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but it was interesting.
You hear a lot of like near-death experiences where people say they were in like a beautiful field and stuff like that. Like, why would that be?
It's the soul is kind of explaining. I mean, like a near-death experience. So the person is still really connected to the body to a certain extent. The person hasn't actually died yet, and therefore the connection to the body conveys messages, right, to the consciousness, which would be similar to the person's experience in this world. So when the soul is at a very pleasant plateau, right? So what happens is that experience of the soul is transmitted down ultimately to the mind, and conveys into the mind images which are comparable to being on a very pleasant plane of existence, and therefore the mind associates that in the imagination with like being in a field which is very pleasant and serene and tranquil, full of life. And
so it's not just a hallucination; it's something.
It's not a hallucination at all. No, it's not a hallucination. No.
Because there's a guy Harvard neurosurgeon who was a massive atheist, and he had a near-death experience, and he's written books, and because of his title, like loads of people are like starting to go crazy about it. and part of his experience was that he was in a beautiful field, and like all the things he saw, like old relatives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, so that's he just explained.
And did it do anything to question his issue of faith, or he's still an atheist?
He's written loads of books on it. He's like called. So he's now a massive believer.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And he's caused a lot of waves in the world because he's a Harvard neurosurgeon.
Is that right? Yeah. Is that right?
And he said, like, because he's obviously a brain doctor, so he knows that there's no way a brain. He was clinically dead at that point.
Right.
So
Is he Jewish?
No, he's not Jewish.
We
Yeah.
heard about that.
Yeah,
It's very interesting that many of the near-death experiences could involve very tragic accidents, and the body is mutilated and requires critical surgery and attention. But the soul, when it returns to the body, describes the time being away from the body as being in a very pleasant realm. And if it were something which, if the experiences that are described by the people who have had the near-death experience are really residual experiences of the body or recollections of the body, it's hard to explain how the body going through such a critical experience, like a car accident, and could actually somehow affect the soul in a way other than conveying torment to the soul. Yet the people describe being in a complete state of serenity, despite the fact that they see the body mutilated.
Sometimes they said they don't even recognize it. They're looking at it for a bit, and like I feel.
Don't recognize. Like, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Researched this.
Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jewish sources document, pretty clearly the major points of that are described in NDE today. Yeah. The Zohar and the Midrash and the Gemara all talk about a lot of these these things having to do with NDE. So getting back to our topic, then the Nes is God's raising the banner of His presence. Yeah. God, that's what a Nes is. A Nes, a miracle, is God's raising the banner of His presence, as to say, right, I am here. So God's presence is being elevated and becoming palpably perceptible by people. That's the Nes. The truth is that we started to say that God's presence is equally in nature as well. And there's a well-known gematria which expresses this idea that the word in Hebrew for nature with a capital N, nature, is hateva. Hateva. That's nature with a capital N. And Hateva is the same gematria as Elokim, the name for God. So what this is conveying is, even nature, Hateva, in its basic common denominator, right, is godliness. There's godliness in everything. And that's the point I was making here, that certainly the laws of nature themselves are from God, and in fact they are God. So what's happening in a Nes is that God is just elevating His presence within nature above the natural working of things, so that presence becomes more obviously recognizable. And therefore that's a Nes.
Elo is the first line in Bereshit.
Bereshit bara Elokim, Ezer Shamayim v'Haaretz.
Made the word. So that name, what is that? Judgment?
That's the natural aspect.
Yes.
What does that name represent?
Generally, it represents God's rulership over creation, God's control over creation. And that's what nature is. Nature is the laws that govern creation. They are the divinely imposed laws of nature, which govern the way creation operates. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is the name of creation, and the name Elokim regulates creation. And those are the laws of nature. It's the gematria of Elokim. Anyway, Hateva is He, Tet. Yes, Hateva is her nature. Yes, so it's 5, 9, 2, and 70.
86.
Yeah, that's it, 86. And that's the same gematria as Elokim. Yeah. So that what they're saying is that, and that's what the rabbi was conveying. He who said that olive oil should light, shall have the vinegar light. Why? Because it's the same elokus, it's the same divine energy which is in everything. And the divine presence in everything and the rules about the way the creation operates are all divinely ordained anyway. And therefore, God's presence is equally prevalent everywhere. Only when God decides to change the normal running of things, that's what we call a Nes. That's the banner of God being raised above the normal working of things. That's the Nes. That a Nes is therefore God's kind of suspending the natural running of things and indicating His presence in the world in a way which is different than we normally see. So we see the normal working of the world as being something which is very natural, and some exception to that as being a miracle. But in truth, Hateva is Elokim, which means we should be viewing nature as a miracle every moment. And the truth is that if a person were, let's say, materialized as an adult in the world as we know it, instantaneously, without having any of the gradual experience of becoming conditioned to the world that a normal person has from infancy through childhood and adolescence and adulthood, the person would go out of his mind. Just, you'd be just awestricken by everything that you see.
That's how
Yeah.
babies tend to appear.
Yeah, that's true.
They're just as new to it as this
Yeah.
materialized adult.
Yeah,
We
that could
got
be
so
right.
used to it that
Yeah.
we don't see them as miracles.
Exactly,
We
but
just-
by the time a person, by the time a person's 3 years old, right? There's nothing particularly, awe-inspiring about the sunrise. I mean, as the person gets older, he might, from a subliminal point of view, come to appreciate the artistic, natural beauty of it. But in terms of the actual miraculous aspect of it, most people don't relate to the world that way. But we really should be thinking every moment about every natural process as being an extremely sophisticated, awe-inspiring miracle. And the fact that we even breathe should be something which instills within us tremendous love of God. You breathe in and out all day long, whether you're awake or whether you're asleep. You don't even have to think about it. It's just a miraculous thing. If you had to think about making your heart beat, you'd probably be dead. We'd all be dead by now. You fall asleep, you wouldn't be able to tell your heart to beat. You'd be dead.
You're on your phone.
What's that?
When you're on your phone.
Yeah, you're on your phone or whatever else. Yeah.
Distraction.
We'd be distracted from breathing, distracted from having our heart. But we have the whole autonomic system, which just operates like that. Second after second after second, minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, for every 120 years of a person's life. Tick, 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 tick. What makes it go? It's a good thing we don't have to make it go, because if it depended on us, we'd be gone. Yeah. So all of these wonderful.
It's hardwired into the nervous system.
What's that?
It's hardwired into the nervous system.
That's great.
The
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
muscles we have control over are the skeletal muscles.
Yeah.
Smooth muscles and cardiac muscles are automatic.
Yeah. It's a good thing that it's that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God knows what he was doing.
Yeah. I don't know if we're ready as human beings to hardwire a person like that, but somehow evolution was able to do it. I mean, it just happened by, of course, random mutations. Yeah.
I was just thinking, what if along the line, early in the evolutionary chain, there were animals that had to think about their heartbeat and their
Exactly.
breathing. They got distracted and were suddenly selected again.
Exactly, that's the point. But of course, the survival of the fittest determined that those organisms which were, genetically mutated over a few thousand or a few 10,000 of years to be able to develop the automatic system. Once that happened, then they were able to survive. Yeah,
There's a phenomenon
I'm being cynical.
of astronauts when they go out into space and they look down at Earth. There's something that happens to them that just changes their whole perspective of life, and it's through this. It's like the ultimate view. They don't know why it keeps happening to astronauts, but they come to this realization of like how amazing everything is.
V'hu nikra nes. So this is the miracle. V'hine al harov, generally speaking, majority hadon baruch hu rotze lekayim teva b'hukosav. The majority of scenarios, God, the Master, certainly does want to maintain and sustain the natural laws which He put in place to govern creation. Ki kevin shebochar bo v'aso k'mot since God chose these rules to govern His creation, vaday she'eda heyotzeh amuvcha shebefanim. God certainly considers this to be the most ideal and best way that things should run. Ullman, aval biken. However, nevertheless, lo yechdal mi l'shanososo b'zman shirtzeh. He will not refrain from changing these laws when He wants to, for whatever reason, when God sees that that would be temporarily the best thing to do. L'ta'amim nodim etzlo, and this would all be for reasons according to Him. So basically, to summarize, therefore, then is that creation exists. It was created by God. It's governed by laws, which means the creator of existence was the creator of those laws that governs that existence. These are the laws of nature. these are the laws by which God generally, these are the laws through which God generally runs the world. However, certainly God reserved for itself, the ability to suspend these laws at any time, and he can do so for any reason.
Oh, really?
Pardon me?
Oh, I didn't realize he could change the laws. If he
Yes,
wanted to.
yes. That's the point here. Are you being...
No, no. I thought
No,
when
it
you
makes
said
the
here,
rules
when
to
you
break
said
them
that
whenever
when
he
he's created the laws, he created those laws so that he could work within those laws.
Oh, okay. So before you came in, I think we made the point that that's...
But splitting of the sea, even that was within the laws of nature. They described that within being. The
Dude,
laws
he
of
split it in 12 different sections for each tribe.
Yeah.
And it-
nature. I thought
and
it was
it's
just one
split
section.
all-
I thought that.
That's just
And
a
every
regular-
body of water
Each
split
tribe
around
had
the
their own
world.
section.
Yeah.
I've
There,
never heard
And
that.
it was visible, right, between the
And he
sections.
made only kosher fish.
Yes.
He made kosher
so that generally speaking, God does rule the world through these natural laws. However, God can suspend or even change those laws for his purposes, according to whatever God sees to be the correct and right thing to do. Just as the rules were created to maintain a state which God considers to be the ideal state, God can manipulate things in order to for any particular ideal at any particular time. These changes in the laws of nature are what we refer to as nes. However, my point here was just that it's not necessarily a change in nature. It is a different manifestation of God's presence in the natural world. It's a difference in the manifestation of God's presence in the world, because in the bottom line, nature actually is based on the divine presence. So that there's actually nothing less miraculous about the way things normally run than the aberrations to which they run. However, the difference is the way that we perceive them. And maybe this is kind of touching on the point that you're getting at. From God's point of view, they're all, right, it's all nature. It's all part of the divine way of running things. From our perspective, there seems to be the difference.
Could God create a natural law so strong that even he couldn't break it?
Of course not. Of course not. Okay, let's end here. We'll try and continue B'ezras Hashem next time we meet.